In June, progressive Jamaal Bowman ousted longtime Congressman Eliot Engel in New York's 16th Congressional District. The victory by the former middle school principal was a boon for progressives in New York, coming 2 years off of AOC's win in a neighboring district.
And Bowman's victory reflects a surge of support for younger, diverse, and very progressive candidates. Jamaal Bowman joins us now to share what he plans to prioritize during his first year in Congress, if he is in fact elected in the general. It's a fairly blue district, but we don't want to take anything for granted. Great to have you, Jamaal. Thank you, and congratulations.
Good to see you, Jamaal.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
So let's start with that question. In your first year in Congress, in your first term, what would your priorities be as we're facing, economic calamity and a virus that's still raging out of control?
Well, racial and economic justice have been a part of our campaign. It's been a centerpiece from the very beginning, and that's something we're going to continue to focus on as we enter Congress. Specifically, at this moment, it's about getting people back to work. I like that the Democrats passed the HEROES Act. Unfortunately, Mitch McConnell hasn't responded with a Senate bill that's in alignment with that. But the HEROES Act is a good start, getting people back to work, and the federal jobs guarantee is going to be something I'm focusing on throughout my time in Congress. And in this district in particular, housing as a human right, housing security, housing justice is something that we need in this district and across the country. Affordable housing is something we've neglected for far too long. The federal government hasn't given a dime to public housing in over 10 years. So that's something that's going to be a focus of mine when I get to Washington.
And Jamaal, we're speaking with you on the, right before the DNC convention is beginning. I know you've spoken a bit about this previously, but would love your thoughts, which is that we see a dynamic in which Governor John Kasich appears to be getting more time on the convention stage than AOC, right? And it seems to be something that's, rankled a lot of people that are in your movement. What are your thoughts generally on the fact that this convention is going forward? AOC is getting 60 seconds. There are rising stars speaking there, as I understand it. You're not one of them. What's going on here?
Well, I wouldn't expect to be one of them. I just won a primary, so I wouldn't expect to be one of them. But definitely someone like AOC, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, and many others represent what I think the Democratic Party is going to be going forward. I mean, the progressives have spoken resoundingly in elections across this country. When you look at Cori Bush's win, Ilhan Omar's win, Rashida Tlaib's win, it's unfortunate that it continues to be a disconnect between the DNC and what's happening on the ground with real American people. With all due respect to John Kasich and many others who are speaking, there are new voices that I think the American people need to hear from, because it pulls them in to the democratic process and gets them excited about our country moving forward. And hopefully the DNC will understand that as we go forward in future conventions.
Yeah, right. One would hope. I'm personally not that optimistic here, Jamaal. I mean, I am really interested in how you kind of square this, because I go back and forth. On the one hand, you've got, Joe Biden, this very sort of centrist, he was formerly known as a senator from MBNA. He picks Kamala Harris, who's historic, but also has a fairly mixed and, friendly to Wall Street at times, friendly to Silicon Valley at times, record. So at the top, you have this consolidation of the kind of traditional neoliberal direction of the party. And yet you have people like yourselves, Mondaire Jones, of course, Cori Bush, all of the members of the squad returning. So which is it, and what does that dynamic look like playing out if there is a Biden administration?
Well, I think there has to be a healthy tension, and I think it's our job to continue to push a progressive agenda and continue to push Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and others to the left as much as possible. I'm excited and enthusiastic about the Biden-Sanders coalition that forced Biden to focus much more on environmental justice than he previously was. I'm happy to hear that, Vice President Biden is focusing on universal child care as a part of his platform. So I think the DNC platform and the Democratic platform overall has moved to the left. Obviously, we have to continue the work there. And I think the healthy tension is going to continue to move us in that direction, because the bottom line is the country is demanding something different. The country supports universal health care. The country supports environmental justice and criminal justice reform and an end to police brutality and investing in public health in a way that's different than investing in more policing. So the country is speaking, and the Democrats have to listen, and we'll continue to apply the pressure in the areas that needs to be provided.
So, Jamaal, let me ask you this. Front page of the Wall Street Journal after Kamala Harris's pick says, as Kamala Harris joins Biden's ticket, Wall Street sighs in relief. How do you plan on holding the Biden-Harris ticket to account while you're in Congress? Will you be speaking out against, corporatist policy? We haven't seen that from some members of the squad, especially during this campaign.
Well, absolutely. I recently did a live stream with Senator Sanders challenging my Democratic colleagues to stop taking corporate PAC money. And I'll submit that challenge here again. Stop taking corporate PAC money, particularly money from the fossil fuel industry, the military industrial complex, big pharma and big real estate, because it's these big industries, big tech as well, it's these big industries that are continuing to nurture inequality and economic oppression that we see throughout our country. So I will continue. I will not take corporate PAC money. I will not. I will continue to challenge my colleagues to do so. But it's also about policy to ensure that the wealthy pay their fair share, to ensure that large corporations pay federal tax, and to break up these monopolies, break up these big banks, break up these large corporations that are like big, even the farming industry and corporate farming. We need to break up these large corporations so that we can invest in the people on the ground that have been neglected for far too long.
How do you think that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have done in the Trump era? Because, we see a lot of resistance in certain ways, but then we see them partnering on the same gigantic military budgets and same sort of surveillance techniques and these sort of traditional, surveillance state since the Patriot Act moves. How do you think that they have done in terms of guiding the Democratic Party through this time?
I was happy to see that we finally moved toward impeaching Donald Trump. I was happy to see that. I wish we would have impeached him multiple times. You don't have to do it one time. You can do it multiple times. I'm happy to see that Senator Schumer and Nancy Pelosi both have reached out to me to begin dialogue and conversations around how to grow what we've done here in this district. And there's a lot more to be done. And I look forward to getting to work on what needs to be done towards not just holding Trump accountable, but holding corporate Democrats accountable. And I'll say one last thing. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have been a part of a system and a status quo for decades in Congress that has worked a particular way and have allowed them to continue to be reelected and allowed this country to move forward in a particular way. And we're at a moment right now where it's time to pivot and it's time to shift away from the status quo and away from the way things used to be, because as we clearly see, when we look at health, economic, education outcomes, the majority of the American people are suffering. So it's time for us to move in a different direction.
Well, final question for you, sir. Will you vote for her for Speaker?
We'll see. I don't know who else is running. We'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Actually, Jamaal, I got one last one for you. We've been following the race, Alex Morse's race against Richie Neal closely. I know you had endorsed him as a fellow Justice Democrat, and you put a pause on that when these sort of allegations were raised by the college Democrats. I saw you were back in the race endorsing him. Can you just take us through your thought process there?
Yeah, it was just a process of gathering more information. Whenever you hear of sexual misconduct, and I'll put that in quotes, you just want to pause and take a step back and just look at the entire picture to see exactly what was going on. And obviously, I learned that it was clearly a hit job and targeting him for a variety of reasons, which is why I decided to get back in the race.
Well, we appreciate you joining us, sir. Thanks very much.
Great to have you. Thank you very much. Coming up on Rising, according to the Wall Street Journal, as we were just saying, Wall Street exhaled sighs of relief over Kamala Harris's pick as Biden's VP. We're going to listen to how Bernie Sanders responded to that headline when Rising continues.